stars and garters, President Ronald Reagan, my hero. Is this heaven?
Oh, not just heaven, Ruckus. White heaven. You see, there are many different types of people, Ruckus. So God created many separate but, well, for the most part, equal heavens.
Don't say.
White heaven is for decent, good, God-fearing Christians who just happen to, well, hate everyone and everything relating to black people. And if you teach everyone on earth to love the white man, you too can join us in white heaven.
Praise white God.
Hey y'all, it's here again, and I'm here with another video. So just to kind of give some context as to what's going on right now and to kind of timestamp this video, we're in the middle of the George Floyd protest right now, in the throes of that. So this is obviously not the first time this has happened here in America, where an innocent black man is just minding his business and then some cop comes and kills him. It's not the first time. This has happened forever, but as far as like in the age of social media, it's happened since like way back like around 2010 or so. Kind of like walk through like what I've noticed over the past several years. So what will happen is some sort of racial injustice will happen. Our community will cry out and be like, hey, what the F? You can't just be murdering black people, and your cops need to be held accountable for that. And then, of course, then there's pushback because we're in a system that doesn't favor black people already. And then, like, so we're demanding justice. And then once that kind of gets, like, relevant enough for everyone else to notice, you'll have white people and non-black POCs basically try to, like, minimize what's going on. Like, oh, well, he shouldn't have been doing anything wrong, or it's not that bad, racism don't exist. You're not a slave, so stop crying. They'll end up saying sentiments pretty similar to that. And so then the arguing goes back and forth between BLM movement and people that support that movement, all the whiteys that just don't want to care. So then eventually protesting erupts because our cries have not been heard. Still, they're not hearing us, so then riots break out. At a certain point, the white people they get tired of this mess, right? They don't have to live being black in America. And I think just the sort of like emotional strain that causes on them, they eventually lose interest. They become apathetic, become tired, just want to go back to like when this wasn't a problem to them anymore, right? But we don't obviously have that luxury. Anywho, they stop caring, and then it becomes irrelevant because, again, like the people who the system favors, they get tired, their cycle repeats. So what I'm more commenting on today is like I'm not going to be commenting on the riots or anything like that. I'm more commenting on the part of that particular cycle that starts at the arguing phase of the cycle, and particularly on how it manifests on the internet. And then kind of like the white apathy and fatigue is kind of probably where my topic, I would say, kind of fits. So with that being said, I sort of created a skit to sort of explain this is what I see whenever this sort of thing happens. I just think that all lives matter. Okay, we're not saying that not all lives matter. Right now, my people are being disproportionately affected by state-sanctioned violence, and that's the issue we're trying to raise awareness to now. That's what the liberal media is wanting you to think. Okay, but here are my peer-reviewed articles on how blacks are disproportionately represented in the prison system, the school-to-prison pipeline, how we've been disproportionately affected by police violence and killings, how we have negative health outcomes due to systematic... Stop being spoon-fed. Those articles are totally lies made up by the liberal media. Okay, but I have my own personal experiences where I've been racially discriminated against, and these stories range from when I was a little kid, throughout undergrad, through med school, my job, all that stuff. So if you want to hear stories, I got them. Well, but these black people agree with me. If we were to go with that logic, like I could just find a white person that would support my argument. You can't just grab whatever convenient, like straw man, and then use that to say that your argument's valid. You're not listening to what the actual problem is. Well, I don't see color. Hey, can I touch your hair? No. So that is what I basically end up seeing every single time this situation arises. The people that have tried saying, oh, the liberal media's brainwashed you, you're not experiencing racism, there's no such thing as colorism or anything like that. So, right when that ends up happening, bring out like the 6 black people, they can kind of get to agree with them, right? And they always end up rotating them and parading them around. And they'll be like, see, you should be reasonable like these black people here because they don't see a problem. And I would like to not have a problem. So you should just be like those guys there. Like, that's usually what ends up happening. This video is for you because quite frankly, you guys are the ones that tend to like fall in this like cycle anyways, and then also bring out the like few black people that we can kind of grab to show why your guys' argument is legitimate. So this is for you guys here. So hopefully y'all will hear me in regards to this particular video. I will be coming at these guys' argument, but I'm not coming for them, right? I understand they're a product of their environment, they're a product of systemic racism. And I'm going to talk about later on in this video about internalized racism. And so I get that a lot of their crappy ideas are from that. I'm coming for their argument. I'm not coming for them. Even though I would argue that they personally probably don't seem like the best human beings, but that would be a separate topic. With that being said, I'll go ahead and get started. I figure we can actually do my little bingo game that I do on my live streams. That way you can keep track, play at home. I'll leave links to the bottom. If for some reason you want to print it out and then play it while you're watching this video or with your friends or whatever. But yeah, so we will be playing bingo while we watch this video.
What Still going.
What person are you? So you're telling me you have not?
Am I not black enough now? I'm not an African American. I'm an American. Okay? And I've never been to Africa. I've never been to Africa.
What's so funny? That wasn't a joke. That's what dumb liberals do when they hear something that flies over their head. Jesus Christ. They don't look that stupid. Hey, look here. Y'all didn't listen what the young man said. Do you know what it is to be African? Yeah. It just means your nationality, where you were born. Yeah. You could be white and be African. It just means you were born in Africa. But African is not a race. It's a nationality.
So now we're back. So let's go over some of the fallacies that we had just witnessed and break down exactly what they're saying that's wrong. So the first thing I would say, and I said, y'all are welcome to comment down below. I'm not a philosophy major, so let me know if there's some finer points of these definitions that I missed. They definitely did like an ambiguous middle term thing. The only like weird ambiguous middle term thing was like African, African American. I would also say they kind of like mixed it up a little bit with a definitional retreat, moving the goalposts. So I would say just in this like 1 minute here, those are like the 3 that I would say right off the rip. With those fallacies being mentioned there, let me go into the exact reasons why this is wrong. So first of all, side note here, what is it? And if somebody has the answer, please let me know, because I've always like wondered this. I always see, because I don't see it on the liberal side. I only ever see it on the conservative side, and I don't know if it's just that like my feed doesn't show me that, or if that's just like legitimately what's going on. But I will always see these conservatives that they will send somebody in to go to a college campus, and they will specifically target the kids who just barely registered their classes that day and be like, oh, see, these colleges don't teach people anything. Liberals are dumb and they're being brainwashed. Like, why is that? Like, why is that a phenomenon that happens? Like, I see that all over like these different like conservative like networks that try to do crap like that. Anyways, that one guy that was like, oh, I'm not African. Uncle Rook is 1 and 2. They're like, you're not African. It's like, y'all... I don't know if it was purposeful. Anyways, the term is 2 words, right? It's African American. And then they personally just like chop off the part that would like make it a little bit difficult to argue their position and just hold on to the term African. Like, oh, you guys are dumb. You've never been to Africa. A white person could be in Africa, yada, 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 right? But to that, I would say 2 things. So for one, y'all already moved the goalpost and jacked up y'all's argument by like not taking the whole term. Right, you're just focusing on one term that on its own does in fact mean something different. What I would say is this. So yes, technically you can be from like South Africa and be white, right? It does technically denote a country, but y'all are completely skipping over the fact that it's like, who actually inhabited that land before those white people came there? White people did not come from Africa. They would do that in skin cancer super quick. It's like, yes, technically you can be born anywhere and you can be of that country depending on whatever their citizen laws are over there. But who was there first? Who was Mother Africa the mom too? The other thing I would like to say is that it's like, you know what, in theory this actually could have been a productive conversation, because like you could talk about how African American or just putting an African prefix on things doesn't completely define a person's identity, right? Because there are, of course, Africans whose families migrated up to Britain, so then they would be like African British or African French or whatever the case is. So yes, that there's that part that's there too. Like Haitians, right? Whereas like Haitians they're black, their ancestors did, in theory, come from Africa, they have their own actual solid identity. And so this could have been a conversation, say, like, hey, we all kind of share the same, like, space as, like, sort of having African, like, features, or could at least have a street appearance in similar spaces. Let's maybe talk about new ways we could identify ourselves. But no, instead they go with this mess. So that's the other thing that I think is, like, frustrating. This could have actually been fruitful. We could have actually talked about this. But whatever. So that, I think, is, like, odd.
My question is this. Why do black people in America show such a strong allegiance for Africa? You wasn't born there. You're not African.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, your ancestors was bought there and sold to the white man.
Yeah.
By their own people.
Yeah, Africans captured your ancestors and sold them to white people.
Yeah, but y'all's got this such strong allegiance to a country you've never been. You don't even know the culture. You don't dress like Africans. You don't behave like Africans. You're not African. You're just a stupid American.
As far as the logical fallacies that were committed here, did they move the goalposts yet again, right? They went from not only going from, like, African-American to cutting down the term to African to then moving it to, like, the transatlantic slave, which is also a separate topic, to address why these things are specifically wrong, though. Yes, slavery has existed basically for, like, all of humanity, across cultures, across countries. There's been various forms of it, but the unique form that specifically America's had partaken in, so the transatlantic slave, that unique type of slavery kind of became new due to colonialism. And so it's like they're completely skipping that nuance towards, like, yes, there was slavery in Africa, yes, slaves were sold, but the actual nature of the whole slave trade changed significantly by the time the Western world had gotten a hold of it and was completely exploiting it.
Like, now, if you was born in Africa, right, and you came to the U.S. and became a U.S. citizen, you could call yourself African-American, but you left that shithole for a reason. You came here because it provided you a better life, your family. So you call yourself an American.
Yeah.
So this little side note here, this just irks me. Like, it just irks me a lot. So actually, there's later on in the video, the same girl in the video of the original clip that the twins are commenting on, she actually sums up eloquently, so I won't actually define that for you here. Y'all just have to wait till later on in the video. That is also like a little bit like a definitionist fallacy, if I'm not mistaken, that's going on there. So that's one thing I'd point out here as far as argument. Side note here. They're just pointlessly rude and jacked up. And granted, this is like due to like, obviously whatever sort of like colorism, like internalized racism tease here, but it's like for them to be like, oh, well, you left that crap hole, right? It's like, okay, again, before colonialism, well, and even like during colonialism, like Africa had a very rich and diverse history of like culture and tradition, all this other stuff, and some very like powerful kingdoms that have been in there that all got jacked up when colonialism happened, right? So like them sort of saying like, oh, you left that crap hole, it skips over that completely, right? And it does very much so fit sort of like the colonialism white man sort of narrative. Like, oh, well, it was bad. I did you a service by buying you from that place and then beating you up and raping you over here, right? So it's like very like sort of abusive person vibes, colonialism vibes there, right? But for some reason here, it's okay.
You know what? Who came up with that stupid term, African American?
You know why you walk around calling yourself that?
Stupid white politicians. They want to make it feel like they empowering y'all. No, all they doing is trying to make you feel like you less American than everybody else.
Yeah.
Do you see white people walk around? I'm Irish American. I'm European American.
You know why? Because they're just American.
They're proud to be here.
Yeah, like I'm American. I'm a black American.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not African American. You want to play African? Go to Africa and play Africa for a while.
Yeah.
Those Africans are going to laugh at you. Look at this dumb nigger. I wish I could go back to America with him.
You're not African. You wasn't born in Africa.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're not African. You're an American. Won't you start acting like one?
You're black, like many people in Africa are.
But that don't make you African.
I mean, did you learn anything from Elizabeth Warren?
I would just say, like, here, this is just kind of, like, a little bit repetitive, more sort of, like, definitionist fallacy. So, first of all, to answer their thing, like, oh, well, you know, you don't see white people doing it. First of all, I absolutely do see white people doing it. I live in a minority majority state, and I actually appreciate that, right? I know some people where it's, like, their parents or their grandparents are, like, directly from those countries, so for them, it's like, okay, they have the culture of both. You can't be saying that white people don't do it, because I absolutely see people doing it. And then back to what else he was saying, it's like, I'm not African American, I'm Black American. That's actually fine, technically, if he wants to identify as a Black American. As I said beforehand, this could have actually been a fruitful conversation to say, hey, maybe we should start using the term Black American because it's a little bit more inclusive. That's not what he's doing here. He's just using it to throw everyone else under the bus. This is just a blatant lie, or at the very least, they've never bothered Googling it. The term African American, it's actually been tracked back to, I think the 1830s, where they've seen it pop up on documentations. But I think the 1980s, Jesse Jackson made that term popular. He was talking to his other fellow African Americans saying hey, we should identify as this, and kind of they were putting some distance between some of the other terms that were there. So again, it's simple Google search would answer that for you. Again, more racism teas, more colorism teas. With their sort of weird African remarks and them acting. That's the other thing kind of throughout this video that I'll address a little bit more later on. Okay, it is fine to roast somebody. I think roasting's hilarious. I think it's awesome. I think more people should roast each other because it's a way to call people out, or at least comment on something and make it a little bit more silly. They're not even roasting. They're just being messed up and remarking about the way they're having the African man talk. They're making it sound like he's mentally disabled, and it's dude. That is not okay to be doing that. First of all, there's one group you're not supposed to really be making fun of. It's disabled people, because they can't necessarily protect themselves depending on what's going on. This shows me that in your brain, you have internalized racism that then thinks that the more African you are, the more dumb you are, or something like that. And so it's that is also just super duper backed up, but you could just see that's how internalized the racism's gotten for them. Oh, and then another side note, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when I actually discuss internalized racism, but they're be American, act like it. And it's there's just a lot of even unpacking that statement, because it's well, what does an American act like? Granted, each country has traits as far as different personalities or values that get augmented in a particular country. To be quite frank, it's this is just a weird racism thing. Just get back in line, let our country be the way it is, be American, but be a second-class citizen. That's really what it means, what they're saying.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
American
but
or
you
Indian
know
American.
why most African Americans identify as African American? Because most of their heritage comes from Africa. So since they cannot identify what part of Africa they come from, they identify as African American as a whole.
Yeah.
So see, here's my homegirl. I don't know who she is, but she's my heroine. She is doing God's work out here. So it's funny because right after she says that definition, these guys can't even comment on it, because yeah, that's exactly why the term African American became a thing, because we had our culture stripped from us, but we at least recognize that we have a common thread back to Africa. So then we say African American, right? She summed that up beautifully. Then these guys can't even figure out any way to disassemble it. So what do they do instead? I will show you guys.
And you liberals are ridiculous. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You can identify as a woman. It doesn't make you a woman. You can identify as a man from China. Don't make you Chinese. Yeah.
So yeah, instead of actually addressing the argument saying why that's invalid, they just make fun of her, and then they also throw in three other conservative ideals without explicitly stating them, but you tell it's very transphobic, anti-Asian sentiment. Yeah, so it's instead of actually parsing for the argument. So that is, as far as logical fallacies go, that would be an ad hominem attack. The other mess in there, I guess, would be more classified as a red herring, or ignoración LSG, I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's it has those three different elements in there, because it is what the heck do trans riot issues have to do here? But it's again, it's we're not discussing trans people and their experiences. Why'd you throw that in there? We're also not discussing anything about the Asian continent at all. So why did you bring them up in here? It's just they had nothing else to say, so they just say dumb liberal, jacked up remarks, and a jacked up voice to sort of also be also sounds very ableist too. It's they just throw all the offensive crap that conservatives are kind of typically known for, and that's how they fight back the argument, as opposed to actually disassembling it and saying why it's wrong. The last two things I'm going to show you, as if the rest of the video wasn't already kind of jacked. These next couple things are more jacked, and then I will get into sort of my moral of the story about all this.
Go to officialhodgetwins.com and pick you out a patriotic t-shirt today.
So again, anti-Asian sentiment. One more offensive thing. Hold up.
Pick you up a patriotic, conservative t-shirt today. Hell, we even giving you 10% off. Yeah, use discount code reparations. The reparations for us. Because of this Kung Flu, we ain't got no new shows coming. Yeah.
So, Yeah, so that last little bit there, again, more anti-Asian sentiment, so more ad hominems, I guess, if we're going to be still playing that game. And then also the whole reparations thing. It's like, I mean, granted, reparations is a topic that I think we should discuss more, like legitimately more, but that's not the point of this video here. That like disabled person voice they're clearly trying to like say, and then, I don't know, like it's just like all kinds of like jacked up stuff in that like last little bit there. Let me get into the moral of the story. So first of all, who are these Hodge twins here? So I don't know a whole bunch about them. I tried doing some preliminary research, and they're basically just like fitness dudes or whatever. And they started off doing fitness videos, and then at some point they started doing stand-up, which again, most conservative stand-up is trash. Like they have like 2 jokes, and neither of them are funny. And so I can't imagine that being like the greatest like comedy show ever. But they do have like a comedy show in addition to sort of their like fitness stuff. They originally made like I think YouTube videos for fitness things, and then they eventually moved on to like commentary and things like that. So that's what they are in a nutshell. Okay, so as far as morals of the story. So first of all, you cannot make a reverse straw man argument and then act like that's like your more legitimate argument for what's going on. I've seen plenty of conservative people that I've bumped into my life like be like, well, I found this one black person to agree with me, so therefore your argument's invalid. It's like, you can't do that, right? Because by that logic, I could find just like another person who's not black, find another white lady to agree with me, right? So it's like, you can't just reverse straw man and then assume that's going to like disassemble the person's argument. You need to actually evaluate the statements and if they're true or not. So that's the first quick little moral story just to get out of the way. The next thing is, even though I kind of was tearing apart these guys' argument, but I'm not coming for them because I know that at least in this particular aspect, crappy remarks they were making, it's like, this is just like internalized racism to a T. Like, that's the only way they could be like physical worse if they just actually became Uncle Ruckus and Uncle Ruckus was running around the real world.
Not everyone is in support of the boycott. Listen to what this BET supporter had to say.
Every time a black baby is born, I'd give him a plasma TV and 1 channel. BET. Slap it right on the ceiling over the crib. By the time that nigga's 12, he'll be watching it in jail. Ha ha ha. BET forever. BET. Boom-ba-ya. BET. Boom-ba-ya. That's the kind of language they understand.
Surprised you guys haven't given him a show.
That on the jury one time.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was in 1957, back in Tennessee. And the defendant was accused of shooting 3 little white women with a Winchester rifle from about 50 yards away. See, now, he thought he was gonna get off with that old I'm blind excuse. But, oh, boy, he had another thing coming.
The jury will now go off and deliberate on...
Guilty! That nigga is guilty!
Sir, settle down. You have to go deliberate.
I don't need to deliberate. Hang that nigga now. I got the rope right here.
So, in short, just to kind of like set the pace for it. So, we've all heard about gaslighting people. We've all heard about like Stockholm syndrome. We've all heard about these things where it's like there's one person who is oppressive and abusing somebody, and then the person that is being abused ends up not thinking their situation is not that bad, or they fall in love with their captor. Like in the case of gaslighting, where the oppressor is chronically trying to minimize that person's problems to make them question their sanity, they'll eventually start thinking like, well, maybe I am being hyper-emotional, even though he did just cheat on me. That's like sort of an individualized understanding of what then actually builds up to be like, what is internalized racism? Said if you can understand the idea of Stockholm syndrome, where some girl's been kidnapped and falls in love with the person that kidnaps her, you can understand internalized racism because the sentiment's the same. If you can get the idea of gaslighting, you can get the idea of internalized racism, or any abusive relationship where you see that there's clearly one person manipulating someone else's emotions, with or without physical force. You can get the idea of internalized racism. So it's like they're not that different, but one is an individualized scale and one is clearly a systemic thing. And these things do, of course, intersect. This is what I'm trying to explain to you guys, is that like you can't just bring out whatever black person that agrees with you that these racist systems are fine, because it would be like me getting a victim from an abuser. Oh, he's fine. You wouldn't do that in real life. So why are you doing that now with a whole demographic of humans? Where we have like studies, we have published studies, we have our own personal experiences, like there's proof that this is happening, and yet our cries get ignored because I don't know if it's just inconvenient and uncomfortable for you guys to acknowledge that like there's a system that's not fair. That is the deal with internalized racism. The other thing I would like to say about internalized racism is that like, and more recently in social media, and more in a comic sense, right? Like we've all heard of the phenomenon of like the I'm not like other girls or the pick-me girls or whatever. That is very much so. But I would say these two fellas are definitely embodying here. Is that it's like, because they're like pointlessly offensive, right? Like, it is one thing to be colorist and to be racist and stuff to yourself or whatever, but it's like they were pointlessly just like throwing jabs to be offensive, like, and it's like that's kind of like what the I'm not like other girls thing is, to where it's like you'll have some girl that like will throw other women under the bus and be like, I'm not like other girls because I eat chicken nuggets and sit in my pajamas. And it's like, first of all, it's not that unique, but also it's like you can just be you, she can just be her, and you are fine being you, she's fine being her. You don't got to throw people under the bus, right? And so with them being pointlessly offensive, not only to their own brethren, but also like they're being like jacked up to Chinese people pointlessly. They like had that weird transphobic thing that they said, the chronic like ableist, like disabled thing that they were doing throughout the video. It's like that is very pick-me girl energy, and I would argue that further supports my claim that these gentlemen have internalized racism, because with the whole like pick-me girl phenomenon, right? It's like those girls are particularly insecure that they will throw other people under the bus to try to get some dude's attention. You know, granted, like, you can talk about how that is a problem of patriarchy and internalized misogyny and all that stuff, but just for the sake of simplicity here, it's like, it is not much different than that girl that throws women under the bus because she feels insecure and threatened by them. And these guys are kind of doing the same thing here, where it's like they feel insecure and threatened. They want the white man to notice them and accept them and keep them in their community. So then they say all the conservative rhetoric, but they like amplify it way more offensively than I would say like a lot of other people that are also in the conservative party tend to say, right? Like, because they'll say all that jacked up stuff, but they're a lot more subtle about it, and it's like kind of spread out. Where with these guys, they're like, okay, we got a 4-minute video, let's be as offensive as possible. For you guys out there that essentially think that, you know, there's no problem here, everything's fine. Oh, everything's fine, I don't know why they're rioting. Well, okay, think to yourself, like, if there's riots happening, and this happens periodically, right, where it's like, we will cry out for justice, we will get people's attention, and then we protest, we riot. This keeps happening every single year. And all y'all that don't think that this is a problem even, you can't say that you have not noticed this cycle either. Like, you have to think like, okay, this keeps happening. There's something systemically that is causing this to happen. It's like the definition of insanity. You cannot keep doing the same stuff thinking that you are going to get different results. Like, something has to be actually going on here. That is sort of the last thing I will say to kind of like put a bow on the idea of internalized racism, is that like every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. Even if those results are unintended, that is what ends up happening. Like, you build a system and you have to go troubleshoot and figure out what in that system is causing this problem. So some closing thoughts. If somehow you were convinced by the end of this video that this is a legitimate problem, that we need to eliminate state-sanctioned violence, if you actually understand like systemic racism, it's a problem, it's going to be a while before it's fixed, but like we can all work on fixing it. If somehow you've been sold on those ideas while watching this video, I would encourage you, like, don't just sit here and be like, oh, wow, that was really informative. Thoughts and prayers. Don't do that, right? Because like at a certain point, if you actually legitimately care about what's going on, it's going to have to cost you some part of yourself, right? Like, thoughts and prayers don't do anything other than to like sort of make you, I guess, feel better, because then you can kind of say, oh, well, I'm a good person because I'm thinking of these things, right? I'm so woke. There's an episode in the XXX Holic anime where, and basically to sum it up, so I don't have to tell the whole story, but the main character, or one of the main characters, Yugo, is telling Watanuki that essentially like the person they're speaking of is like, well, for her to get promoted in her job, it's going to cost her a certain amount of like misfortune or unhappiness in order for her to get her goal. And that in regards to like sort of all this stuff with addressing the systemic racism and all the other problems going on, it's like, if you actually are legitimately concerned with the cause, if you want that bad thing to stop happening, it's going to cost you a little bit of something to make it stop happening, right? You not doing anything is letting the oppressor keep on oppressing. Please find something to do. I'll leave links down below where you can donate money, or you can help out in other ways that are free. But like, help out. So even if you just like call out your racist uncle, and that's all that you ever do from now on is just call out racist people, that will do more, you know, than like what you can even imagine, right? It'll help make the lives for like us and our children and our children's children so much better. You just call out your like racist relatives. Listen to us. Listen to people that are suffering. I mean, that's just good life advice anyways, that like you should listen to people when they talk to you, you should just listen to people. That's all I have to say about all this. If you have any questions, leave them down below. So with that being said, stay safe, people. Black Lives Matter. Go out and do something helpful to help our cause. And we are still in the middle of a pandemic right now. So be safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, all that stuff. And I will talk to you guys later.